So today's project is changing out the blower motor on my rooftop RV air conditioning. These are Mach air conditioners, Coleman Mach air conditioners. Got two of them. What are they, 18 years old or better? So I got one motor that's about to fail on me. She's getting hard to start, but my front one does fine. So I'm gonna try to give you an example to listen to the difference. Hopefully it'll pick it up on camera. And one thing I always like to do before I turn my air on, I just don't leave it on auto, crank on the air. You'll notice your amp load is tremendous because you're kicking on the compressor and blower at the same time. I like to turn the blower on first and just kind of listen to things, make sure it sounds okay. So let's turn on the front air, see if you can listen to it and see how quick it picks up. Let me see if we can detect an amp. See if we can detect an amp draw, how much it is. Because that ain't gonna do no good because I won't be able to show you on the back air, but let's just see what happens. Pull back and flip it on and see how quick it speeds up. We have to go the right direction. Here we go. Real quick, up and running. Okay, that's what you want. Within a second or so, she's full speed. Let's go back to this one. Let's see what it sounds like. Okay, here we go. Same way. Everything's off. I'm just going to flip it on. Let's listen to it. So did you hear that delay? That's not good. So I've already tested the capacitor. I know the capacitor is good, but I'm gonna go through that test also. So usually if you got a slow starting blower motor, you know, it's either a bad capacitor or a bad bearing. So that's been my experience anyway. So we'll climb up on the roof and do a little troubleshooting, and you can come with me. Okay, here's another way to troubleshoot a bad fan motor, a bad bearing. This is my front air, the one that started up nice and quick. There's the troublemaker back there in the back. So let me show you back here. We give us a spin. See how free it spins? Okay, let me crawl back to the back one and I'll show you the difference. Okay, so here's the back air. Now try to spin it. So it don't have that free will. It kind of, it's just not spinning like the other one is. So we got a little bit of a bearing issue. Now I know I can maybe lube it up, but at its age. Of course, another thing, I got a buddy of mine, Paul. He's sort of my early warning system. He's got a 38J, same year as ours, 2005, Winnebago. But he's up in the 90,000 range. I'm at 70,000. So when he has something go wrong, then I know I'm not far off. And I think maybe a year or 2 years ago, he replaced his fan. I think he's already replaced both of them. So that's kind of an early warning system. I know if his went out, mine's not far behind. So because I've never removed one of these before, so I'm going to figure it out, see what kind of tools we need. I know I got to get this side panel off so we can access the wires to get these wires loose. So let me get a few tools ready and we'll get started. Okay, of course, first of all, when you get the panel off, before so, I've already turned the breaker off, but I got a proximity tester so I can double check, make sure there's no power nowhere. So I'm not going to get zapped. You got this butyl tape here, kind of peel it back out of the way. You can probably use it, but I've got some more if I need to. And need to get me some side cutters, cut that loose, and get these fan wires out. Okay, so I'm gonna go through the process of testing the capacitor as well, because I already know the motor's bad, but just in case you're on the fence, you don't know if you got a bad motor or a bad capacitor, I'll show you that. But of course you need a capacitor tester. You can always remove your capacitor and take it to a local HVAC store and they can test it for you. I love this tool here. I've bragged about it many times. It's an SC440 made by Fieldpiece. I know they're a little expensive, about 180 bucks or something other, but you take care of it. This thing should last you for years and years. But it's just great for all sorts of HVAC work. You can test your compressor for lock rotor amps. You can test capacitors with it. Of course, standard voltmeter stuff too. Something called inrush current to measure your compressor to confirm if your compressor has failed or not. Plenty of videos online show you how to test a compressor, but to do that you have to have a proper tool. With a proper tool you can confirm a diagnosis yourself and not trust someone else that may be just trying to sell you a new air conditioner. Anyways, so I've got my two brown wires loose. Brown wires are usually always for your capacitor for the fan motor. And you can see the little capacitor in there, which is fairly new. I'm not going to remove it, but in there with a screwdriver and put the plastic handle across the terminals. You can see what I'm doing. So I've discharged it. Now I'm going to get in here with these little test leads and plug on there and plug up to my meter and see how it tests. And if you know me well, you know I save everything. So here's my old capacitor I've replaced in the past. You see it says 7.5 UF. So 7.5 microfarads is what it's, that's what it's supposed to have. That's a bad one. And same way with my new one, that's what it's supposed to read. So you can see I got my leads hooked up, and it doesn't matter which terminals you hook on it. You know, polarity doesn't matter. So let's flip this on, see what we get. 7.52. We're supposed to see 7.5, so we're right on the money. So we know we got a good capacitor, and the fan motor is still dragging, starting up slow. So we are going to replace the motor. So I've got my 2 brown wires removed. It's easy enough. Now I got my couple other wires which must control my speed. I've got a neutral, and got a high and a low wire. So I'm gonna get down here, find out where they go, and mark them so I know where to put them back in the right spot. Okay, so that's easy enough. I followed them down. We've got a black, white, and red wire we need to cut because they got factory crimps here. We'll cut that wire. Cut this one, and we're gonna cut the red. Make sure we cut on the right side. Well, I'll be putting new crimp connectors on these anyway. All right. She's giving me trouble, ain't she? Get 2 hands on it. I found the problem. We got a little zip tie up here. So I'm going to get in and cut that zip tie, and I have to remember to replace it. Alright, so we're making some progress. We got our wires pulled loose. That's easy enough. I've loosened up my clamp here. Now that took a Allen wrench. It took a 5/32. So if you're going to do this project, you know what Allen wrench you're going to need, at least on this Coleman Mach. Took that loose. That done. Now next thing we're going to do before we go moving this fan back, because I think I'm going to have to scoot the fan back before it'll lift up out of here, is mark the position. So I'm going to put me a piece of tape on top of the fan blades here, a couple places, so I know when I install it back we get it in the right position, because that depth can be kind of important. You want to make sure you get it kind of the way that factory had it set, so it grabs there properly. And I've already loosened up these Phillips screws. That wasn't no problem. So let me see if I can put some tape on these fan blades, and hopefully I can get it scooted back on that shaft. Oh, you see I got my fan pulled back. I did have to crawl back down and get me some sandpaper. Got me a little bit of penetrating oil to loosen it up, and a pair of vice grips so I could hold the vice grips and rock the fan back and forth and slide it back. That worked out pretty good. So now all I got to do is take out these Phillips screws and see if it'll come out. Don't know if it will, but we're going to try. Okay, so moving right along, so I got the blade back as far as I can get it so I can get to the end of the shaft. And I did some sanding on it, put some penetrating oil on it too. So now I'm going to get my vice grips back on here and try to work the fan blade off the shaft. And maybe we'll get lucky and pull this thing out. Okay, it's being stubborn, but I think I finally got there. I have to remove this little screw here on the condenser. This screw here I removed, and one screw right down in here. That allowed me to lift it up, get it above this lip here. As soon as I did that, the condenser moved forward. Now, and then it gave me just enough room to get the fan off, because it was giving me fits. I couldn't get the fan off without hitting the fins, and I didn't want to damage anything. So that's why I moved that back. It was really close. Yours may differ, but for mine I had to take that loose to get it out of the way far enough. Now I'm hoping I can take the couple screws here and get it sideways and see if it'll come out. Let's try it. Okay, as you can see, it clears, but just barely. It will come out that way. So everything's still intact. And now I just tilted it up and got it out of the way. Alright, so now I got to get 2 hands 2 hands on this, because remember, we want to move slow and careful because we don't want to ding up our fins inside of here. So there we go. So at least he's out. Now I can take it to the ground and start changing it out. Okay, so before I climb down from here, let's go over the tools that I used, so you don't have to climb up and down so much as I did. A good Phillips screwdriver. It's odd socket, 11/32. You'll need that. There is this little bracket that supports the motor. It's got a little 11/32 nut on it. You need to take that loose. So Allen wrenches, particularly, all you need is a 5/32. Side cutters to snip some zip ties. Some sandpaper to clean up the shaft. Some penetrating oil would be good. A little piece of tape to mark your fan blades. Of course, if you want to test your capacitors and stuff. Proximity tester is good. Make sure you got no power up here and don't get no zapping. So those few tools, you can get this out. So now let's take it down into the garage and do some swapping. Before I go downstairs, look how interesting that is. That's kind of scary how close that bolt gets to that fan blade. But I guess it's got enough clearance, but that did catch my eye. It's kind of dirty in there too, isn't it? Maybe have to, give me a good light in there and check those coils while I've got everything apart. Just for the heck of it, so we can document it. What model we got here? Here we go. An 853 4B876. Somewhere around 2005, I would imagine. Been a great unit. Alright, so the motor's out down here in my garage now, and I've taken my new motor and took it apart just so I could look inside of it. I wanted to see how much oil they had on the bearing. And it looks like it's pretty good, because I push on it here and it kind of squeezes out. So I'm kind of satisfied with that. There's only 4 screws, but I'm gonna pop the other side off of it and just check things out. I'm always curious, if you know me. Okay, so I'm gonna take this other side apart and see what I see. Well, as you can see down in there, it looks like it's good and wet. It's got plenty of oil also. So I'm satisfied with that. So now I'll stick it back together. And you can also see what I was going to point out. Mark your housing if you're going to take your motor apart. Be curious like me. And you can see how this bearing is self-aligning, how it pivots. A little self-aligning bushing. In fact, what I'm going to do, I'm going to tilt it here and get a little gap and squirt me a few extra drops of oil in there just for good measure. So I got my little oil squirter here. Just put it on there. And I'll let it sit here for a little while and let it work its way in there. Have all the oil I can get on that little bearing, so get it to last another 18 years like the first one did. Alright, you can see I got my little motor all back together. Got it oiled up good. You can see how free it spins. But now look at this old one. Try to spin it. It hardly spins at all. It's binding up pretty bad. So next step, I'm going to take this fan off, give it a real good cleaning before I put it on, swap out the motors here. But before I remove the fan, I want to precisely get a measurement on this, so I put it in the same position on the new motor. So I took my calipers here and used that little gauge on the bottom. So I can come down here with it like that, make my little measurement, turn my little thumb screw here. I've locked it in place so I know I'll have that exactly where it needs to be. And the shaft is nice and clean. It should be easy to come off. So I'm going to take both hands, try to pop that off, get it cleaned, and then we'll start making the transition. Oh, yeah, and something else I learned. First I thought I seen this little, which I thought it was cracked, or I thought it was maybe something for balance. But after I got to taking it apart, this is used for your Allen wrench. To go in here and loosen up that Allen head screw. And actually it comes out really easy. Just ta-da! So give that a good cleaning. Maybe I can sneak it in the dishwasher when Sweepy's not looking. I don't better not. Someone will rat me out. I know they'll see this video. You know what he did? He stuck it in your dishwasher. Alright, so let's get cleaning and swapping. Okay, a little snag, but no other way around this. To get the motor loose, I got to puncture holes in this insulation. And I thought about it'd be nice if I could peel it off, but it's really stuck on there after 18 years. So here's what I've been doing. You see, I've done it 3 times already. You can see where the bolt pierces through. Just get my little socket on there. There it goes. Oops, sit still. All right, there we go. I'll just make a little bitty hole. So hopefully that won't cause us any issues. Because I imagine you need this insulation on here to help keep that heat from the motor from getting onto the evaporator side. That's on there pretty good. There it goes. All right. Now we're ready to take this loose. And also you notice I put a mark here, an arrow, where my wires come out. So I'll make sure I get the motor, the new one, oriented in the exact same position. And swing them side by side. Need to make sure everything's the same. Shaft length looks the same. I don't know. Hey, that motor depth is a little bit different. Looky there, looky there. Just a little bit different. Now, I need to do some careful measuring here to make sure everything's going to be in the same position. Things may be off now. Okay, well, good news. Everything fits just fine. The depth of the housing is just a little bit shorter on the new motor, ever so slightly, but the shafts and everything are the same length. So that shouldn't be an issue, because this is the motor crossed over to it. And I'll put a link in the notes below the video, so you can link to it. I found it on Amazon, of course. All right, so we'll flip this over and put the blower wheel on it and get this thing finished up. Okay, if you're following along, this takes 11, hang on, what did I say it was? What did I say it was? 11:30 seconds. Kind of an odd size, you don't see that much. I see a lot on electric motors though, for some reason. But I'm gonna snug these four up, get my blower wheel back in there and get it in the exact same position. And I'll be ready to climb back on the roof. There you go, all tightened up, looking good. Let's put our blower wheel back on there. All right, and I just got to get my depth just right. Get my Allen wrench in there and snug her up. Okay, we're looking good. Remember how I made my little gauge a while ago? So I got that put just right where I found it. And got my Allen wrench in here, got that tightened up. So see how much better that thing spins? That's what we call in Kentucky, more better. You may not have heard that word, but it's a real word. All right, so now we can climb back on the roof and start reassembling this thing. Okay, it's time to climb up on the roof. There's the motor I'm using, by the way. It's what cross-referenced came out to be. Got my tools loaded up in my little box and motor, so let's get to the roof and get this done. Okay, something of a head scratcher. Well, I was looking at some paperwork and doing this research on this little project, and I noticed in the Coleman service manual, they talked about on older models, the capacitors they would have maybe a red dot or something on them, and they told you on those capacitors to be sure to hook the brown wire with a white stripe to it. But never in my days have I ever come across a capacitor that had polarity to it. So that now this is a brand new capacitor and it has no polarity. There's no markings on it. So tomorrow I'm gonna call, because it's about 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm gonna call tomorrow, try to get a hold of Coleman and see if they can explain to me why they had a capacitor with polarity. Just to show you a little bit of something else here. See, this is our neutral wire. This is the brown wire with the white stripe. And you can see that's loud. That's zero resistance. And the brown wire is connecting to that directly inside the motor. And we'll go to the other brown wire, hook to it. And you see with that, we have resistance. So that's somewhat of a puzzlement. Maybe I'll get an answer and I'll add it to the end of this video. Okay, and I guess before you put that back together, it'd be a good idea to wipe it out a little bit. I see how much crud I got off of it. Clean off that inside that styrofoam and check your coils in there. Make sure they're nice and clean, and they are, so I don't have to worry about those. So I'm going to carefully tip this back in there and get it in place and get the fan back on it. All right, I'm going to try to show you what I can with one hand. So I've just got it rested in here. Remember, I took these screws out so I could get this the condenser moved back just a little bit, and just lift it up. Now, I've seen some other videos where this fan actually was able to push off into the side, but my fan blades are way too long. There's no way you can shove it to the side. Maybe that's part of my issue. Could be just a little bit older model, newer model, something different about it compared to some of the other Mach air conditioners. Okay, so now we got that done. I'm going to lift this up into my screws. Remember our orientation, got the three screws across the top and 2 in the bottom, so you don't want to have it upside down. Alright, so I just got 1 screw in there for now. Got the blade lined up, got your flat spot on here. We just scoot the blade in there. Of course, remember you want to make sure you have your clamp on there first. Don't forget that. Alright, so that's looking good. Because remember how I put marks on my fan blades, make sure I get it back in the right spot. And I'm just manipulating this back in place. So I got that lined up. Let's see if that over here. There she goes. Alright, it's looking good. Alright, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and put all my screws in here, tighten everything up, and then I'll fine tune the position of this fan blade. Okay, all my screws are back in. I want to point out something because I think I may have misspoke when I was taking this apart. I think I'm pointing to this screw. It had to come out. I did not. In order to get the condenser loose, all I had to do was remove 4 screws. One here, this screw right here, and that screw. Took those 4 out, and I was able to gently just lift it up and tilt it just a little bit in order to get that to get the shaft to clear and not to damage the fins. So all that's in good shape, and I'm just going to get this blade back in position where it needs to be. Get my Allen wrench, tighten it up. Then all I'll have to do is run my wires back through and get that thing sealed up, and we'll be ready to do a test run. All right, we're nearing the home stretch now. Just got to get our wires and shove them up through this hole. Make our connections. Make good connections. We want to make good connections. Really good and tight. All right, so let me get these tidied up and get some connections made. Alright, time to make our connections. We're going to snip off these old, because these are crimp connectors, and I'm going to go back with crimp connectors. I like making good crimps over a wire nut. Wire nuts can vibrate and loosen up. I like these things here. You can get them in different sizes, and just put them on there. Give them a good squeeze, but you need a good tool, something like this. Put a good squeeze on them. You don't have to worry about it no more. So I just got to strip these wires and twist them together, and then we'll put a little end caps on it. Okay, check out this new tool I got. Get them on Amazon. Maybe I'll put a link to it down below. It's only like $17, $18, but man, what a cool tool it is for stripping wires. I'm gonna try to do this with one hand. But see, you got a little gauge here. You can slide this back and forth to determine how much insulation you want to strip off. So let's see if I can do this with one hand. I don't know how this is going to work out. So you just bring down, let the wire, oh come on now, give me a break. Oh, there it went. Whoops. Oh, come on. Right, it's touched. So I kind of got my length where I want it. I just give it a squeeze. Ta-da! Is that sweet or what? What a great tool. And so I'll make sure there's no strands in there. Nope, it did a good job, because I was concerned it may leave a couple strands in there, but it didn't. Come on, focus camera. There you go. See, there's no strands. Dirty nails though, but no strands of wire inside there. So I really like this new tool. All right, let me see. You see, we done got my wires, got them all twisted. Got my Super Duty crimping tool. And remember, see, you got 2 spots. You got, make sure you use the right crimp part for the connector you're doing. That's non-insulated. This is insulated. We have an insulated connector here, so we're going to go back there, get onto it, give it a good squeeze. Now we have a good tight connection that'll never come off. I'll just put 2 more on there, and we'll almost have this project done. Okay, so last thing got to do is tuck my capacitor back in there, because I pulled it out because I wanted to verify there was no markings on this capacitor. But I'm gonna call Coleman this morning and see if I can't get an answer as to why their manual notates about the wire with the white stripe. Which one is it? Yeah, right in there. Goes to the one that has a marking on it, even though this one has no markings. Hopefully I'll get a straight answer. Okay, you see all my connections are made, everything's tucked back in there, capacitors in good spots. I went and got me, well, I always keep this stuff laying around, this butyl tape, really good stuff. And I've put me some fresh butyl tape around the wires, even put some down here because that little foam piece was getting kind of weak. I'm zip tied my wires snug so nothing's vibrating loose and around. It kind of inspect all your other wires. Make sure your wires aren't rubbing any copper pipes, because over time the insulation will rub off and you'll get a short, and that will cause you grief on a hot summer day. But all these wires look good, nothing's touching, so I'm happy with that. So I think I'm about ready to wrap this up. All I could do is put my little plate on there and put the cover on and go down below and turn on the power and see what happens. Now wait a minute, before I do that, I want to talk about how good these old Coleman Mach air conditioners are. This thing, you know, for 18 years it's been humming right along, and the only thing I've ever had to do to it was I did the capacitors a while back, just changed them all out because the front air, the capacitor blew on the actually the hard start capacitor blew on it. So I just went ahead and got capacitors for everything because, you know, at that age, I think average life expectancy on a capacitor is about 15 years. So anyway, I changed them all out, but this is the only thing I've ever had happen with a fan motor to fail. So, but look at the piping on these things compared to these new ones. You're not going to have that big heavy-duty type piping. And I doubt if any of these new ones will ever last 18 years like these will. Anyways, all right, let's get it wrapped up and test it. I know, I'm such a chatty Cathy. I keep thinking I'm trying to wrap up a video and I keep finding something else to say. So before I get down from here, I wanted to point out, tape up all your joints. Keep these things as efficient as possible. And one last thing, put a little dab of grease, because sometimes if the cover set has been off a long time, these screws can be a real booger to get out. If they're giving you trouble, use a little a battery powered impact would be your best bet to get them loose. But sometimes they'll be rusted and they're so tight this little nut will spin inside the sheet metal. So my trick, once I discovered that, I had a problem getting these out when I first got the RV, I started putting a dab of grease down these threads. And ever since I did that, I've had no more problem getting them in and out. So that's another good tip for you. Because if you spin one of these things in this sheet metal, yeah, that's a bad day. No fun at all. All right, now let's try to get downstairs and turn this thing on. I know, I'm still talking. I thought of something else just for us putting this cover on here. How important these little pieces are for you. And yours may be rotted and gone by now. But in fact, I had to make these a couple of years ago. I had some leftover foam from some project. And you see how the clean area is. Well, that's where it sits up against this middle flange right here. That's why it's clean. And you got to think of what's going on is when your air conditioner is running, you're pulling in relatively cool air across the coils to get rid of the heat out of the RV. And then it pushes it out both sides. That's why, because like these are intake grill, that's your outtake grill. Well, without these foam pieces in there, the air can just recirculate. You got all this hot air in here, and it comes back around, loops around, gets recycled over and over again. So you're not getting rid of the heat out of the RV. So check yours, make sure yours are in place. If not, order some or do like I did, just make some. Alrighty, now I think I'm done with this, and we can get down finally and test this. Okay, back inside. Let's get the breakers back on, both airs. Now let's see what it sounds like now. Because you remember what it sounded like before. And see, we're just going to flip air only, not the compressor. Here we go. Now here's the after. Ain't that a lot better? Did you hear how fast that thing fired up compared to the old way? Or the old motor? Yeah, baby. I think we've got it fixed. Okay, final segment about this video. Remember I mentioned about the capacitor. I was a little confused about why they want you to do this. Here's a schematic I printed out on our model of this Colman Mach air conditioner. And you can see where it's got this little mark on the fan capacitor. And then the manual talked about, you know, if you see a red dot or something other on one of these terminals, then that's the one you hook the brown-white wire to. But this is the genuine original capacitor from 2005. and there is no markings on it. Even called Coleman, still on hold for 45 minutes. Talked to a tech there, but really he had no answer for me either. But I did talk to a friend of mine, Larry. He's an electrical engineer, and asked him about it. And he said that there are cases where sometimes manufacturers, I guess capacitors have an inner and outer plate. They may want you to connect the neutral wire to the outer plate. That's the only thing he could probably think of. And I talked to a buddy of mine who's been doing HVAC work for probably 30, 40 years. And he said there are some old GE air conditioners that used to do that. They would have a marking on the capacitor as to which one the neutral wire got tied to. So anyway, that's what I found out. If you can shed some more light on this, please do down below the video in the notes section. Once again, thanks y'all for watching, and have a blessed day. Bye-bye.